obviously talk with Carly. Obviously, I have been best friends with Carly for many years. She's impacted my life. I lived over in the UK for 10 years, and that's where we met. Carly has worked with our mums. She's also come on our busy mum retreats. Maybe I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, because I can introduce it, but I would love for you to introduce yourself. But today, guys, we're going to be covering a very important subject that I feel affects most mums, self-love versus self-care, and how to get yourself out of burnout. But Carly, I would like you to introduce yourself today.
Because you can't be bothered. No, I'm joking.
No, I can, but I think you'll do a better job at
it. I'm joking. Hey guys, good to be back with you busy mums. It's been a while. I think, when was the last busy mum retreat that I went on? It was quite a few years ago now.
I think it was before COVID. Yeah.
That was really good fun. So I'm Carly, aka Coach Carly. So I've been a change and trauma coach now for over 16 years. And I also do energy work. So I teach Reiki, I do various different kinds of energy work, and often bring them together, right? So I've spent the last 16, 17 years working in the fields of psychology, mental health, justice, addictions, homelessness, basically the whole gamut of anything that could go wrong with people. I've been working in for the last 17 years. And my kind of style of coaching has very much become helping people through times of change, and also helping them to recover from past or current trauma, so that they can, like, my biggest passion is really helping people to step into being unapologetically themselves. And when you're in a space of burnout, depression, anxiety, that kind of thing, you often completely lose yourself, right? You come out of that space and you're like a shell of your former self. So my passion is helping people to get back to not just the person that they were before depression, anxiety, burnout, but a souped up version of who they were before, the version of them before, plus a whole bunch of self-love. That means that you don't ever let anyone treat you as less than ever again.
Yeah. And that's and I've watched your journey, and, you've changed so many people's lives. And it's quite funny. I obviously wasn't always in the fitness industry. I was a banker till I was 28. And it was actually Carly back in the day that gave me a book. I think it was a goals book. I can't remember what it was, but I remember taking myself to this cafe in Sheffield and sitting down and writing a new reality, and all these goals for me that may have at the time seemed for me so big. And one of them was to compete. One of them was to, own my own website and, I guess an entity to help others. And, that was the start of my journey into the fitness industry and where I am now. So, it's been an incredible journey, and obviously thankful that I met you, Carly. So
I remember what that book was. I think it was How to Be Wildly Wealthy Fast by Sandy Forster, which sounds like a really cheesy title, but it's really all about manifesting, and not just manifesting money, but manifesting abundance of all kinds into your life. And that's how I really got to know about the law of attraction. And you, Kelly, were, I think, pretty much one of my first coaching clients. Like, I still remember the room that I was in a hotel, being on the phone to you, coaching you with your journey of like 6 weeks time. You wanted to do this first bodybuilding competition. So and look at where you are now. Look at where both of us are now.
Exactly. And it's just, it is proof that, these strategies work. And, that was, I'm 41 now, that was 28, and, where I am at, what I've achieved, and how we coach our mums is just such an incredible, an incredible thing. And today, I really wanted to talk about something that, even I've experienced, at some stage of being a busy mum, having 2 kids in 2 years, and then becoming a single mum wasn't the path that I that I had planned. I believed in that big white picket fence life. And it's something that unfortunately many mums don't know how to action. In fact, when someone says self-care and self-love, it's like, what does that mean? But for many mums that I've come across in the last decade, there is the common story of I put my kids first, which there is nothing wrong with that. We all want to put our kids first, but many mums end up losing themselves. They lose their health. They struggle to even, understand what self-care or self-love is, and they end up in burnout. They have, the inability to even know how to prioritize themselves, which in turn can lead to the weight gain, the anxiety, the depression. And I would say the anxiety and depression percentage could be up there at 50-60% in mums, even more so, I think, even after COVID and so forth. So, Carly, where do these mums start? Like, what is self-love versus self-care burnout? Like, where is the starting point that we can, I guess, help mums with?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I'll share a little bit of my background as to how I ended up even getting into these topics myself, yeah. Right? Because this has all come from my own journey. And while I haven't birthed my own children, I've been a stepmom for years. And I've also been in helping professions, and through being in helping professions, have generally attracted partners into my life that have also, as you know, Kelly, because you've seen me through that whole journey as well, needed rescuing, helping, and had a whole stream of issues that it led to my own depression, burnout, anxiety. And so I think I've had burnout a few times and depression a couple of times. And every single time it's always been because I've been completely emptying my cup by over delivering and helping other people and putting myself completely on the back burner. And that came from a space of many different things that I really wasn't aware of for a really, really long time. And I've only become aware of it through, about 22 years of personal development now, right? It's a really, really long journey. And that includes limiting belief, clearing past traumas, feelings of not feeling good enough, not worthy enough. And everybody's got that core limiting belief of not feeling good enough. Yeah. Literally everybody has that core limiting belief. The extent to which you're successful in life really depends on how much you can ignore that belief or release it or overcome it, or have successes in your life that prove the opposite of that. But when you're in depression, anxiety, burnout, or you're in a relationship where you're feeling like you're constantly not good enough, but also when you're a parent, because nobody gives you a handbook about how to be a parent, you just learn it along the way. And am I allowed to swear on this video? And by fucking up along the way as well, right? So you never know what you're going to get in life, and you might, like we've all had that image of having that white picket fence, and then all learned that whole fairy tale basically doesn't really exist. And you may think that you're just going to have children that are just going to be amazing and loving and adorable, but they might come with a whole host of issues themselves, ADHD, learning difficulties. Like, you never know what you're going to get. So you kind of over deliver everything of yourself and then end up in burnout, depression, anxiety. The symptoms of those things are very, very similar. You may have them all, you may just have one. The treatment of one versus the other is very, very different. So the way that I kind of came to learn about self-love being different to self-care, or self-care is part of self-love, right? I got to a space in 2011. So I'd left London in 2010, having come out of a 3-year relationship with someone who had bipolar. And that was an absolute roller coaster of a 3 years with him, for the first half in mainly psychosis, which, if anyone here is ever experienced anyone in psychosis, it's really, really scary to live like that. So I was living like that and working as a probation officer. So I was like, in whichever way I turned, I was helping people, right? Or trying to, and not, there was no safe place for me at home. Like, it wasn't a sanctuary. I would come home to who knows what every single day, but it was not someone who was on this planet at all. And then the last half of our relationship, he was in like major depression, and I slipped a disc in my back at the time. So I was in constant pain. I was signed off work, and I had like him just latched onto me all day long, following me around the house. So I had no breathing space whatsoever. So that's when I first went into depression. And then I moved out here to Australia. Things, didn't quite work out how I thought they would initially. And I went quickly back into depression. I thought I'd recovered from it, but chemically my brain wouldn't have recovered, right? So I find myself doing a job where I'm tree planting for a visa. And so I'm not in a job where I'm helping anyone. And me and my partner at that time we were very on and off, and we were off at that time. So I wasn't in a relationship where I was helping anyone. And I wasn't in a space at all where I was, able to kind of restart my coaching business at that point here because of the space that I was in. So I wasn't helping anyone, right? So there's me like not doing a job that I would want to do, not in a space where I'm helping anyone. And I realized how much all my self-worth, like all of it, came from helping other people.
Yeah.
And I realized how fucked up that was at the time. But really all I did at the time was go, right, I need to get out of this space of depression. I need to do what I know works, spend time in the sunshine, fuel my body in the right way with good nutrition and supplements, listen to Louise L. Hay affirmations flat out, surround my brain space with as much positivity as I could, because I was trying to override the negative thinking that was going on in my brain constantly. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with that anxiety brain going round and round in my head. And the only thing that was getting me out of bed at that point was knowing that if I didn't go to work, I wouldn't get a visa to stay in Australia. So I just kept going through the motions. It was just like Groundhog Day. But I was doing these self-care things. And I thought that self-care was self-love at that time. And then a few years later, so fast forward, I don't know, maybe 7 years, I kind of was still in that on-off relationship, but by that point we were engaged. I'd been a stepmom for 8 years, came out to the Busy Mum retreat, and that kind of couple of year period between 2016 and 2018, I focused flat out on what I called Project Self-Love, because I realized that I'd achieved all these really big goals in my life. Like, I had, at that point, permanent residency in Australia. I'd built my dream home by the ocean. I was engaged. The relationship wasn't amazing, but, I was ignoring a lot of things because I loved being a stepmom. And there were certain things going on in that relationship where I was really committed to being a stepmom, and he was one of the reasons why I stayed so long.
Yeah.
So I realized, like, I'd achieved all these huge goals, and then I started feeling like this emptiness in my solar plexus area, just above your belly button. I just felt that real sense of, it was like this hollow, empty feeling. And I'm like, what's that about? I was running my business full time. So I'd quit my job to run my business full time. Like, on the face of it, I'd gotten everything I wanted, everything that I had, when we started talking about manifesting all those years ago, I had ticked all those boxes off the list. And yet I felt hollow and empty, and I didn't know why. And I was listening to a podcast. I was walking on the beach one day and listening to a podcast, and they said something like, your wealth will only grow to the extent that you do. And there was something else that I listened to that day that made me realize that although I'd done all this personal development work, it's not like I don't work on myself. I do it relentlessly all day long. There's always stuff that I'm confronting about myself and clearing. But I'd actually never worked on self-worth. And the reason for that was because it was never really obvious to me that I had a lack of self-worth. I'm confident, I'm happy, I'm optimistic. I've come from a really great family who love me. I've got amazing friends in my life like you, like I was doing a job that I love, helping loads of people and living in a country that I loved. So having low self-esteem and low self-worth was not a thing that was obvious to me. But what was obvious to me was that I had spent my entire adult life in relationships with guys that abused me in some way, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, financially, never physically. But I remember going through the domestic abuse training at work and looking at that power and control wheel and going, that is my relationship. And so if I 100, and this is a really great question for anyone to ask yourself, right? Because we can bullshit our way through any kind of question answer scenario about, you know, is your relationship good? Are you happy? Are you enjoying life? But if you actually ask yourself this question, if I 100% loved and honored and respected and cherished myself, what would be different in my life? Who would be in my life still? Who would never have been in my life in the first place? Would I still live in this house? Would I still do this job? Would I be in this relationship? Would I live in this country? Like, look at every single thing in your life. If you 100% loved yourself and respected yourself, how would your life be different? You cannot not know the answer to that question, even when you're depressed and burnt out.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really confronting question. And when I ask my clients that question, they don't even need to answer it. Yeah. Because they know deep within their soul what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. And so when I realized that I needed to work on my self-worth, I basically turned myself into a project for the next couple of years, and I put together Project Self-Worth. And I flat out did things like EFT, which is tapping, forgiveness work, healing work. Everything that I did was focused on increasing my sense of self-esteem and self-worth. And then I realized how self-care is a part of self-worth and self-love, but it's only a really small part.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I was just trying to think of what I was going to say then. A lot of women feel very different in their bodies and life after they have kids. And that, I think, is a lot of self-worth as well. You know, that is something that a lot of mums have to deal with and change, because how they were before children is different how they were after. And I guess knowing what to do about it, I guess, is the next step. Where do you see mums starting from if they are feeling that way, you know, I guess with regards to self-care, self-love, you know, having that inability to prioritize themselves?
Well, I think everyone's suffering from a lack of time to do anything, right? That's the standard response from most people these days, whether you're a parent
and working.
I don't have the time. And so but there's things that we do all day long, mainly in our brain space, right? The way that we're talking to ourselves, to other people, the way that we're allowing other people to speak to us, that it's not going to take up, like, I love what Tony Robbins calls net time, no extra time. We're already doing those things anyway. So it's just changing the way that we do things. So one of the things that you can start doing really, really, this is one of the most simple things, right? But a lot of people find this really difficult. So what do you notice when you give someone a compliment about their hair or their clothes? Like, what do you notice people do?
I don't know.
Most people will say, oh, it's you know, it needs a wash, or
right, they say something negative about it, like they don't believe, rather than saying, oh, thanks, that's amazing, exactly. You know, they'll be like, oh no, I haven't washed. People
don't generally accept a compliment, right? They will either immediately throw a compliment back at you. Generally, people will shrug off a compliment, and I'll say to them, just accept the fucking compliment. Like, it was I gave you a genuine compliment. I don't need you to say anything back. So if someone gives me a compliment, I'll be like, thanks, I like it too. I like this top too, that's why I bought it. You know, so that's a really easy way to start. But it's interesting when you first start doing these things, actually how you become so much more aware of what your responses generally are, especially when you're tired, especially when you're hormonal, you know, you're not feeling good about yourself. So you know, those spaces where you're not loving the way that your body has changed, or you're not loving anything because you're so exhausted, you know, those, when you really, really work on self-love and self-care, you get into this place of acceptance where you, instead of saying, oh, I can't handle this day because I'm so tired, you go, I'm really tired today. That's okay. Every day is different. I'm just going to get through this day as best as I can. And you accept the space that you're in and the body that you're in, because your body has produced a whole human being.
Yeah. And women forget that, you know, the stress, the overwhelm that comes with it. And what I also find is many mums just talk about their stress versus finding a way forward. And I think that becomes an addiction in itself. You know, if you do find yourself constantly talking about, you know, the reality of the situation, but not do anything about it, that becomes an addiction, because a lot of women go into victim mode because of their situation. And it's not about not, you know, understanding that or believing the mum. It's just that, you know, sometimes there has to be a little bit of resilience to say, okay, well, today was a really rough day. You know, I acknowledge it, but then think, okay, what do I need to do? Right. You know, the first things first is get into bed early, honor that sleep, and wake up the next day and say, you know, what is it? Rather than, oh no, hopefully it's not another stressful day, you know, changing it into a question of what is it that I can do today to work towards my happiness and health? Because even if the kids are a priority, what that question does is you're still internalizing, I am a priority. I need to drink more water today. And I think that's where that self-love and self-care shows, because you've even got the ability to ask that question and say, what is it, you know, that I can do to move forward?
Absolutely. And I think setting up routines for yourself with stuff like that's really important, because you can easily forget to do stuff, right? But if I into my head as something that I need to do, so I will like literally leave something in a place like in the kitchen where I'm in the kitchen regularly. So I'll leave something there, like, I don't know, like the pegs for my laundry line, to remind me that I've got to do something, you know. So with things like water, you know, just always always making sure that this is having it with you, right next to you wherever you go.
You know, and that is a form of self-love, I think, sometimes. Hey,
my bulldog's just walked in, if you hear weird honking and snorting noises.
You know, I guess when a lot of people, you know, say self-love, and I remember years ago thinking it like, what do I stand in the front of the mirror and tell myself that I love myself?
People find really hard to do, by the way.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously there are situations, you know, protocols or, you know, where you do that, but, you know, self-love can be as simple as just honoring basic root, you know, like, I guess, nutrition, hydration, and exercise during the day. That's going to make you feel good. And when you feel good, you do good. You know, I think
other things too are, you know, so those are the self-care aspects of self-love, right? But that's honoring yourself and loving yourself by sticking to a routine, the routine that you know works for you, and nourishing your body with all that good nutrition and water and stuff, and good sleep as much as you can when you're a mum, right? But also it's things like saying no when you want to say no, instead of saying yes out of obligation. Now, there are obviously times where we do stuff out of obligation, but think about how many things that you do that you really don't want to do, that are a definite no for you, that you say yes to because you're people pleasing. You know, and think about, so it's saying no when you want to say no. It's also giving yourself the space, because sometimes people, if you're a people pleaser, people find this really difficult to start saying no when they have said yes the whole time.
And also women that are all or nothing, you know, I've found along the way a lot of very driven mums who, you know, have successful careers. They are all or nothing. So they're trying to do it all. They're trying to work. They're trying to get their kids to school, sports, and then they do have this element of burnout because they're trying to be perfect in all areas. And, you know, burnout can be quite severe for mums. You know, we're not just talking the feeling of burning out, but health issues. You know, sometimes it can activate more hormonal issues, you know, autoimmune, you know, responses as well. And I guess we need to be able to deal with that before that happens. You know, and I think, like what you said, saying no to things, having basic habits in place, but also, you know, like for me, one thing that I've implemented in the last 3 years, and this is my time, is, you know, I make sure that I go to the magnesium pools and I do hot and cold therapy, because that to me is self-love, self-care, and actually prevents me from burning out, because I'm also a career-driven woman who, you know, wants to be, you know, in this space as well. But if I don't have that, you know, Friday sauna, or, you know, the cold pools or the hot pools, then I will end up, you know, in that burnt out space. So, you know, and anxiety isn't nice, being overweight isn't nice. And I guess, you know, well, for some, but, you know, we have to put actions in place before that happens. What would you say if someone is in total burnout right now? Like, what would be the first thing that they could do to mentally shift that burnout phase?
I think reaching out for help is really important. So during those times, like I remember going to the doctor when I was last burnt out, and he tried to diagnose me with depression, and I actually got really pissed off and walked out, because I knew what depression was, because I'd had depression.
Yeah.
But if you've got burnout, you will tick all the boxes that lead to a diagnosis of depression, because the symptoms are really, really similar, right?
Yeah.
The treatment, though, is really, really different.
Yeah.
And so the first thing to do is to, like, I just went directly to a pharmacist, and I just remember him being such a lovely, kind man. I know I just walked in, I must have just looked so exhausted. I was bone tired. And he just made a beeline for me, put his arm around me. He's like, "What can I help you with today?" And I said, "Do you have anything natural supplements for burnout?" Because I just realized by then it's not depression, it's burnout.
Yeah.
And he gave me, it was called Adreno Support back then.
Yeah, I have adrenal plex here, which is for my adrenals, and I take that, you know, every day, because I'm up here all the time.
Yeah. So that's really important. You know, something that supports your adrenals is really, really important.
Yeah.
If you can stop coffee, then stop coffee, because adding stimulants, which, you know, when you're tired, most people are reaching for coffee, but adding stimulants is not helping your adrenals at all. And pharmacy grade vitamin C is really as well. Sunshine, water, getting enough rest if you can, you know, like getting enough, going for a slow walk around the block, and not overdoing things like HIIT training, because at that time that you're burnt out, that's not necessarily the right exercise for you to be doing. You can come right within a week or two if you actually take care of yourself. And then mentally, sometimes it's really difficult when you're in that really tired, burnt out, depressed, anxious kind of state to like, it's easier to just let your brain go wherever it goes. That it takes almost less energy to do that, but that's not going to be helpful. So if you find it difficult in that state to think positively, then instead listen to stuff that is positive. So affirmations, Abraham Hicks on YouTube, I find really, really powerful to listen to.
Peter Cron is amazing as well. I listen to a lot of his stuff, and you know, I guess all of but I always say, like, if you are in that state, don't listen to your own brain, you know, because it's a lot of it's retraining. And when you are in a burnt out state, that's where a lot of the stories start, you know, about your life, about your future, about your situation. So, you know, making sure that you have got a coach or some support, or like what you've said, not listening to your own brain. and I think, like energy work, whether it's a Reiki session or just anything that's going to bring you back into your body, because I think when you are burnt out, you're in that outer body feeling of like, and, whatever therapy, I do believe that everyone, likes different therapies. Sometimes I go to a chiropractor, sometimes I go to acupuncture, sometimes I want to talk to someone, but just knowing that there is other, people out there can help, in that stage, and really to nip it straight away, because you don't want to constantly, and, be in that. And I also just want to say, like, it is not selfish for you to go and do this outside your kids, because this is what I always say, right? If your daughter or son was the same age as you, okay, they were feeling burnt out, depressed, they'd gained weight, you as a mother are going to say to them, hey, go and take some time out for yourself, go and look after yourself, go and join an exercise program. That's what you would be telling them as a non-negotiable. But you, as their parent, are not doing that yourself. So you're teaching your children, when they are in a burnt out state, not to look after themselves. Then there is something wrong, because our kids should see parents teaching them how to regulate themselves. It's like, you know what, hold on, guys, I need to go for a walk because I'm feeling really stressed at the moment. I need to, go and do something for myself. That is not selfish. That's teaching your children the best ways on how to look after them. And that's another way to think about it, because if you're not able to run around on the field around them because you're not feeling good about yourself, then you need to take the time to look after yourself so you can do that. And many mums say to me just constantly, I've got no energy, I can't do this, I'm feeling this way. Well, yeah, get back to basics, hydrate, less caffeine, move your body, self-care, talk. And then this whole self-love, self-care, no burnout thing, then that's the steps that you have to take.
Role modeling it to your kids, if you feel like you say, people feel like they're being selfish when they're prioritizing themselves, but you're not. Like if you when you want to be, and don't your kids want you to be the best version of yourselves possible, and by being that best version and role modeling to your kids that it's totally okay to also take care of yourself, and to fill your own cup so that you're the best self that you can be on any given day, which changes every day, right? Your best self changes every single day, based on so many different factors, but you're role modeling it to your kids. So if you reframe it for yourself that you're not being selfish, you're being a role model. That's really important. And with all that negative self-talk that goes on, learn to soothe yourself, so instead of having that, instead of telling yourself, I'm so tired, I've got no energy, I've got all these things to do, then use soothing language. Like, I may not have the best energy that I want right now, but I'm just going to take it one step in front of the other. And I'm just going to get done whatever I can get done based on my level of energy today. And I'm going to prioritize filling up my cup at the same time. So you're not necessarily, you don't have to tell yourself a lie, like going from, when I first learned about positive thinking, I thought you had to go from saying things like, I've got no energy, to going, I have energy. Well, which is just such that there's too big a gap there, right? So instead of saying I have no energy, just instead reframe it to, I may not have the energy that I want right now, but there's things that I can do about that. Because that's way more empowering, and you don't feel like you're telling yourself a lie, but it's a much more empowering space to be in. So use soothing language like you would do with your kid if they fell over and hurt their knee. You're not going to tell them, you're not going to slag them off and say, just toughen up, and you would soothe them. So soothe yourself like you would soothe your kid.
Oh, that's great advice. I mean, you're not going to go on and go on and say the harsh things to your children. You want to calm them down, and I think mums have to be easier on themselves as well, because parenthood is tough. I mean, Eden and Vaya are 9 and 10 now, and every day I'm like, am I winging this? Am I getting it right?
Isn't everyone just winging it?
Probably, yeah. I'm like, my children are still alive, but we're all doing the best job we can. And I think, the amount of pressure that parents put on themselves, I guess in some situations does take their own health away. But with elements of ultimate health, we all want to be here. Well, I know most people, we want to live an incredible life, we want to be healthy, we want to live disease free, but we do have to prioritize reducing stress, we do have to prioritize eating well, staying hydrated, because they're all the basis of staying alive a lot longer. But if you're getting to a situation and you're not got the self-care, you're 20 kgs overweight, weight isn't just weight, it's inflammation. And then you add stress into it. This is where the health issues come from. And a lot of women come to me and they've completely lost their health. And they're just like, I wish I'd found you 5-10 years ago, because I wouldn't be in this situation. And it is what it is, start at any stage of your life. But if you go back to, the basis of what our female body needs to survive, then we're going back to, basic principles.
And some of the weight that you need to lose isn't even on your body.
Yes, that's right.
So when you're storing trauma and stuff from the past, you're storing it energetically, but you're also storing that weight on your body physically. Yes. And so, I work with a lot of survivors of all kinds of different abuse, and child abuse especially will pack weight onto people. So by also doing the work to release the trauma and stuff that's stuck in your energy field, you will also, and by loving yourself more, just that simple act of actually loving yourself, you start naturally shedding the weight as well, because you also, when you love yourself, you want to eat better. You make a point of prioritizing yourself and your sleep and your nutrition and doing the exercise. So all those things that you work really, really hard to, you work really, really hard to lose weight, but actually those things become so much easier when you prioritize and love yourself. It just kind of naturally happens.
And that's exactly it. When you do that, the world opens up, to what is possible. And I always say that rather than wake up thinking what isn't possible, what is possible. And that's where magic happens. That's where a lot of mums say to me, I just don't know. So your program turned up today and it was just what I needed. I've been thinking about it for ages. So, the mind is a very powerful tool, the most powerful part of our body, and we have to work on that every day. What is there anything else that you would advise mums, I guess, as a finisher to self-care, self-love, burnout, where mums can really reach their peak with health and happiness?
I would say, if you haven't ever heard of EFT, emotional freedom technique, I would definitely start exploring that. Because those learning tools like that can help to break your negative state really, really quickly. So these videos are 5 minutes long. They're free on YouTube. So money isn't an excuse. Time isn't an excuse. You can tap with your kids. I used to do this with my stepson all the time, and he loved it. And it's the bulk of my Project Self-Worth playlist on YouTube, which is free. If anyone wants it, just drop me a message and I'll send it to you. And so, if you can commit to doing one tapping video a day that aims to break the negative headspace that you're in, and also has the focus on improving self-love and self-worth, then that alone, that one tiny little 5-minute shift every day, will actually, bit by bit, this is how I increase my self-worth and self-esteem. It was the bulk of it was doing EFT. And you can use EFT. It's like tapping on various acupressure points, mainly around the face and the body, where you repeat statements. And by using that, you can use it to work on any goal that you want. So you can use it to increase your health and fitness. You can use it specifically to address burnout and anxiety and depression. You can use it to help you lose weight. You can use it to, you know, for a bunch of different things. So it's all about moving away from negative states and moving towards positive states. So if there's one little thing that you can do that you can add into your day, I would definitely suggest that.
And where can everyone find you, Carly?
So my website is coachcarly.com. I'm on Facebook, so I've got 2 different pages. I've got Coach Carly, and then Phoenix Transformation is my energy work side of things. I'm doing a lot of stress web removals and healing people from adrenal fatigue at the moment. That's definitely coming up as a theme. So if you're interested in stuff like that, follow either of my pages. I'm posting.
I'll put the pages and the Facebook link. So give me about 10 minutes, ladies, and I'll put them in. But, you know, if anyone out there has questions about this, feel free to put it down below. We'll come back and we'll answer them. You know, Carly is in our community. You know, she'll maybe come back and give some examples of EFT maybe. But yeah, don't, you know, if you are in this situation of feeling the way that, you know, burnt out or, you know, I guess not in control, then just know that, you know, there is myself, there's Carly that you can reach out to for help at any stage. Okay.
Definitely. Also, reach out whenever you like.
Reach out for help. All right, Carly, thank you. Yeah, I hope you have a wonderful day.
You and all you busy mums too. And also I want to finish with the question, what is one thing that you will do, everyone that's watching this, what is one thing that you will do for yourself today? Self-love, self-care, whatever it might be, but for yourself only. And if you're brave enough, put it as a comment in the comment section underneath this video, because I think then you're role modeling that to other people that you're going to do something today to prioritize yourself.
That's awesome. Great idea. What are you going to do for yourself, Carly?
I'm having a sauna later, actually. So it's funny that you mentioned saunas. I've been getting into infrared saunas for the last couple of months. And I'm actually even thinking about buying one for my home gym, stick it in my garage next to my home gym.
Saunas are the best. It's one of my self-care. Love it. Love sweating away. I'm going to go down and have one actually today as well. So I'll do one and you do one. All right. Oh, okay. All right. Well, end this up and I'll put the links on in about 10 minutes for anyone that would like to link up. All right. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.